In this video we are going to be working with text files. This is chapter 13 of your book, and we'll see how we can program text files in Visual Basic. So if you want to save something permanently on the computer, you're going to require a text file. Let me manually create a text file, and then we are going to try and read from the text file. So I'm going to open Notepad and I'm going to create a text file, and in this text file I'm going to be adding the first name and last name of different individuals. Let's say Mr. Name, Mr. K, Muhammad, right. Let me try some name which is going to be slightly longer. Mustafa, Hakim, right. So we've created this text file. Let me save it in the document folder. Let me save it on the D drive. Right? So I'm going to save it in the D drive, and this is the path, right? So I'm going to name it as my text file .txt. So this is the file that I've created, and I'm going to be processing this file. So I'll basically try and open up this file with Visual Basic, and I'll try and read each line from the file. So I'm going to try and read line number 1, I'm going to try and read line number 2, I'm going to try and read line number 3 and line number 4, so on and so forth. So I created this file manually. I didn't create it with Visual Basic, but I've created it manually. And the advantage is that whatever I save on the file gets permanently saved into the computer. A few things we should note. In a text file, every character has an ASCII value. So the corresponding ASCII value of the character is basically saved in the text file. Even if you are typing numbers into a text file, those numbers will not be saved as ASCII values. Rather, they're going to be those numbers are not going to be saved as numeric values. Rather, they're going to be saved as ASCII values. So if you have a number like 589778, it will not be saved as a number into the text file. Rather, this 5 will be converted into its corresponding ASCII value, 8 will be converted into its corresponding ASCII value, 9, 7, 7, 8, all of these will be treated as characters, and their corresponding ASCII value is going to be saved in the text file. So technically, even though you're trying to save a number 589778, it's going to be saved based on its ASCII value. It's going to be saved as a string. It's going to be saved as a string. So the number, if you want to save the number in as a numeric value, you're going to have to create a binary file. This is something that we did in A2, right? Creating binary files, saving data into binary files. A binary file would store a numeric value in its internal representation. And what is the internal representation? A numeric value can be stored as a 2's complement representation if it's an integer value, and a numeric value if it's a real value. If it is a if it has a fractional part, then we use the floating point representation. Okay, let's go back to our file. This is the file that we're trying to read. We have names like Asad Naeem, Adnan Rashid, Umar Aslam, Mustafa Wasim, all of these written on separate lines. What we must understand here is that Visual Basic provides us several different ways in which you can read a text file. So I'm going to try and read from a text file using one of those ways. There are other ways also. I'll try and cover two different ways to read from a text file. Both of these are valid from the exam point of view, so you can go with any one of these. So let's start by opening the file. So we say we want to open a file, and this is the subroutine that we want to use, called file open. File open expects three parameters. One of the parameters that we're going to be using is a number, right? And we can use any number. I've used 1. You can choose any other number. You can use 20 or any other random number that you want to choose, right? So you can choose any random number for the file number. I'm going to use 1. The only thing that you should be careful about is that this number should be an integer value. So 1, 2, 10, 15, 20, any integer value would do, but it has to be an integer value. Now the second parameter is the name of the file that you want to open. In this case, our file is called mytextfile.txt. This was the file that we created some time ago, but we must also specify the location of the file. So we're going to give the complete path, the mytextfile.txt, and the third and the final parameter that is expected from this subroutine is that this subroutine expects is what mode you are going to open it in. So you have to specify the mode. So you're going to say open mode dot, and we're going to open this in the input mode, meaning what? Have I made a mistake here? Let me check. Okay, this seems fine. So we have specified that our mode in which we want to open this file is input mode. So basically that file, which is stored somewhere on the hard disk, is now going to provide input to this program. So we are trying to read from that file. That file is providing us input. First of all, obviously what you should understand is, because we want to open this file is going to be moved from the hard disk into the RAM, and from the RAM we're going to try and read this file, and the mode is input, right? Our program is going to be receiving input, some values from this file, and our program can now work with those values. So the mode is input because the file is already there and we want to input values from that file into our program. Let's try and let's create a variable, my string as string, right? Okay, now what we want to do is that we want to read from the file, and one of the methods that we can use is line input. But line input, see, this gives me an error because line input is expecting that I provided some reference to the file that I'm going to read, and in this case this file number is what I should be providing. So this one is actually acting as some sort of a handle here by the help of which I can actually get access to that file. So now I'm going to write line input 1, which basically means that the file that is being identified by the number 1, which was given here, remember, this one is now going to be referring to this file, right? So this one is what I've put here, and automatically um, it is understood that the line that is now going to be input is going to be from this file, which is identified by this value 1. Okay, so now the entire line is going to be read. Okay, so this first line is what is going to be read. So the entire line is going to be read, and this value, once it's read, is going to be given to our string variable. So my string is going to get that input from line 1, right? And that value as a name is now going to be assigned to my string. Now we can actually check this by taking an output, right? Console.writeLine. I'm going to say output my string, right? This is what's going to be output. And finally we should close the file also, and once again we should mention which file we want to close, and there you go. So even in file close we gave a reference to that file using the number value that we chose here, right? Okay, so now we are ready to run this program, and hopefully when this program runs we should be able to see our output, right? And there you see Asad name. So up till now our program just reads a single line from our file, but that is not what we want. What we want is that our program should be able to read each line in the file and output that line, right? What we're going to do is we're going to try and read our file line by line. We're going to use the same command, right? We're going to be using these two instructions, but now these instructions should run in the loop, right? What we want to do is that the first time the loop runs, we want to read this line. The next time the loop runs, we want to read this line. The next time the loop runs, we read this line, and the next time the loop runs, we read this line. And at this point our program should be able to tell that this is the end of the file, that we've read all the lines in the file. So how do we do that? Well, it's a very simple solution. We're going to write a loop, right, while not end of file. Okay, so this is a built-in function, and this function tells us when we've reached the end of the file. Okay, so what we're saying is that while it is not the end of the file, and we've also indicated which file it is by giving that integer value 1, which basically creates a reference to the file. So now we are saying while you've not reached the end of the file, keep doing these two things, right? Keep taking line inputs, and once you've taken the line input, assign that value to myString and then output myString. So once this loop runs the first time, the first line is going to be read, it's going to be given to myString, and then we're going to output myString. The next time this loop runs, the second line is going to be read, and that's going to be given to our variable myString, and then we're going to output our variable. So this loop is going to keep running as long as we don't reach the end of the file. Once we reach the end of the file, this loop is going to stop. Then we're going to close the file, right? So that's all our program needs to do. Hopefully, when we run this program, we should get our desired output. All the 4 lines in the file should be output, and as we can see that the loop kept running until we reached the end of the file.